Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Metal Mastermind. On today's episode, we are going to talk about writing vocal parts for your metal song. How do we do this? Well, we can all agree that writing vocals is a very subjective matter. Not everybody's going to have the same opinion. And that's why we have different subgenres in metal. Not everybody likes the same thing. I personally love cinematic metal or symphonic metal. This type of music gets me riled up, ready to tackle my day, and puts me also into an imaginary world.
I also love symphonic metal and melodic death metal and a lot of the old school thrash metal.
So when we're writing vocal parts for these things, we have to bring into account some of the things that are typical within those genres, but we have to also bring into account the style of our own personal vocals. Now, when we are writing these vocal parts and we're thinking about the lyrics, you don't have to pigeonhole yourself into writing a certain content of lyrics, right? Now, because it is black metal, there is a tendency to write about Satan and the Dark Lord of the underworld, but doesn't mean that it's necessarily the only thing that you can write about. You can write about personal life experiences, and you might even be able to twist some positive things in your life in the style of black metal.
Another example is, let's say your band's like a power metal band. A lot of those types of bands might write about stuff like dragons and warriors and cool stuff like that. But if that's your style of music you're playing, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to pigeonhole yourself into that style of lyric writing, if that makes sense. So whatever your band is centered around, just make sure it makes sense and fits with the music. It doesn't necessarily have to be the stereotype that fits that music though, right? You want to make sure you're writing your own style, and then you're kind of creating your own little subgenre when you think like that.
One of the defining things in metal is the growls. It's a vocal staple within the music. Now, when we're writing these vocal parts, sometimes it can feel unnecessary. I mean, try listening to, like emo metal or something. I'm not a personal fan of emo metal, so don't hate me for it, but it's not going to always require growls in emo music, right? You might want some melodic content in there. That's one of the big things about writing this kind of style of music. When you are trying to balance melodic and growls, you want to make sure that those two are not stepping over each other's toes and the transition isn't so cliche. Cliche is very hard to avoid, and cliche just says to everybody, lazy, okay? Take some time and thought. Metal and music in general, it doesn't happen just overnight. You gotta work at it. You gotta make it good. And that's what we're trying to serve. We're trying to serve the song. Don't serve your ego, please. You might be the face of it, but people love music first.
You may also want to have a variety of vocal styles in your music. A good example is the band Amorphous. They have this very clean vocal style in some songs or some parts, but then they also have this really awesome low death metal. Killswitch Engage is another good example. They have this screaming in some parts, but then they have these clean vocals in other parts. And you may want to mix those around and play around with those, or you may even stretch it and have two different singers instead of just one, where you're interchanging those different styles together. So don't confine yourself to fit one specific subgenre. Rather, work on creating something new that hasn't been done yet, and it's truly your signature style as a band.
So how do we start creating these vocal lines in software? Now, I personally use Pro Tools and Sibelius and Logic, and there are benefits and drawbacks to both. Or all three, I should say. Pro Tools and Sibelius, well, they're under the same roof, right? They're created by Avid, and so they work together very well, but they are separate programs that you have to intermingle with. Each one specializes in a very specific part of audio production, whereas Pro Tools is meant for recording, mixing, and mastering, and Sibelius is a dedicated notation software. But if you wanted to get an all-in-one package, you can kind of go to Logic, or I don't know if Cubase does it, so don't quote me on that. But Logic will be able to actually have recording, mixing, and mastering, as well as being able to view notation right within the software. So that's a nice benefit of it. Now, if you have more than one vocalist, this is a very, very critical thing to do. You have to make sure that your vocal lines are not stepping over each other. So writing these vocal parts, it takes a little bit more work, but in the long run, it's better to write them out in something like Sibelius and work them out so that you have these sort of counterpoint vocal lines working in harmony with each other, and you can really play around with that without having to always kind of sing these parts. Now, I mean, if you're a vocalist, you're probably singing them anyway. But this is another tool to your advantage that you can use trying to harmonize. If you're working on them yourself, if you're the only songwriter, you can use these tools to harmonize and explore different options without another person being in the same room as you. Another tool that I like to do is recording my ideas on a voice memo app, something like Evernote. Evernote is really great at doing something like that because I can take it on the go, record my idea. I'm sort of like beatboxing and singing into my phone a little bit. And with that, I'm able to bring home just a general scratch idea to just elaborate more in something like Pro Tools. Gotta catch inspiration when it strikes.
Now, me personally, I've never used any type of software for creating vocal lines, but of course, Ken talking about it here is very interesting, so I might be diving into that soon. However, that's going to lead us into our next topic here. Now let's talk about aligning the vocals with the music so that it fits the music. This is really crucial, especially if you happen to be like a solo artist. So you're the lead singer, but you're also the guitar player, or you're playing any instrument. It's important that you can sing and play your song at the same time. I'm chuckling because I've made this mistake as a studio musician. There's been songs that I've written, and then, of course I record the guitars, then I go back and record the vocals later and never really play it live. It sounds great, but then when I go to try to play and sing at the same time, I'm like, oh crap, this is kind of difficult. So if you're a solo artist, it's very important that you play and sing at the same time before you start writing how you want those vocals to go, and let that guide you. Now, if that's not the case and you are with a band, you still want to make sure that your vocal lines fit the music, fit what's going on. Now, I do realize sometimes there may be cases where, the vocals kind of may take an overlapping direction, if that makes sense. Like, if, for example, if you've got a rhythm section and there's a chord here, chord there, and chord there, you don't necessarily have to have the vocals align with each of those little punches. You can kind of overlap some of those, but just make sure that the song flows together. Make sure that when you listen to it, that it makes sense to your ears.
And which comes first? Is it going to be writing the instrumentation, or is it going to be writing the vocals? When I was talking about Evernote, I really do like to beatbox into my phone, and sometimes that's the first thing that comes up. But if I'm going to be writing vocal parts, I might be singing a melody instead of beatboxing, and that will give me some sort of reference as to how I'm going to develop the instrumentation henceforth. That would be the main melody of the song.
Now, Ken and I do have a free home recording studio guide for you to download. There's a link in the description of this YouTube video, so if you haven't gotten the copy of that yet, definitely go there and grab your copy. This is something that we put together as Metal Mastermind for you to help you guys out. That's what this channel is all about. We want to help every metal musician write better songs, produce better music, and of course we're going to give you some other tips just to have a better life as a metal musician. We're all in this together.
I hope that this information was helpful to you, and if it was, please give Metal Mastermind a like, subscribe to our channel, and ring the bell so that you're going to get all the updates henceforth. That being said, horns up.